One of the strengths of the program in general is the fact that we have this professional level exhibition space for our students. So every year we invite an outside juror, usually somebody who's connected to the profession in some way. We've had art historians, we've had gallery directors. Chris King, who is our juror this year, is actually the studio program director and the gallery director at the Louisiana School for Math, Sciences, and Art. And so he has looked at over 100 students' submissions, and each student could submit up to 5 pieces of work. And then of those over 500 works of art, he juried in 40 pieces of art. So that whole process is very much, the kind of professional experience or similar to the same experiences that we who publish go through out in the world, right? So that's part of the thinking behind having something like this, is to give the students a real world experience. But it's also about allowing, having feedback from an outside juror, all of those things that are a way to help connect our students with the art world in a broader sense. So I think what's really extraordinary about this show this year is the wide range of various media that is included. I think that Chris really thought about, not just a show that's about painting or not just a show that's about drawing or graphic design or sculpture, but a little bit of everything. And so you can kind of look around the space, and in one sense, you could ask yourself, how your experience changes in that kind of quality. Is it something that's meant to be a little bit more of an intellectual kind of questioning? So I'm looking at a piece by Nick Hobbs right now, who is a senior BFA student getting ready to graduate, who just realized, he just found out that he has been awarded a full ride scholarship and stipend to the University of Arkansas for his MFA program. And it's because of this body of work that he's been developing over the course of the last 2 years now. And Nick is really interested in the intersection of perception and experience. So when you look at this painting, you can see highly rendered forms, whether those are eyes or forms of the human body. But the intersection of that with spirituality too, right? The larger question is, how do we know what we know, right? So his work draws from highly rendered, sophisticated approaches to drawing and craft making. And if you look deeply into this work, you can also see children's scribbles. So, this is, a lot of that comes from looking back to his own sort of development as a human, and putting the pieces together and trying to make a work that's really about how we come to know who we are, how we come to know anything in life today. Highly personal, highly symbolic, and beautifully crafted. We have other students, like in this sculpture, for example, here, Ashley English's piece. She actually had a health condition as a young teenager where she spent a lot of time in the hospital based on it. And so a lot of her work, she's interested in costume design. That's what her goal is once she leaves the program. So she, in exploring that interest here, she makes sculptural works, wearable objects that make a comment on the ecology and on environmental concerns and how those influence our well-being and our health. So those are just a few examples of how, each student starts from a place of, what is my experience out in the world, and then translate that into something three-dimensional or two-dimensional, or something more of an installation-based thing. So we're standing under Maddie Dearman's piece right now, and Maddie's work is heavily influenced by her own spirituality. I think what I love about this work so much is that there's a joy in it when you start to really pay attention to the craft. She's using things like pipe cleaners, things that we would think of as sort of children's craft-based materials. And she's turning it into something that is a really beautiful, joyous kind of experience. And we chose to place it in the center of the gallery because we want you to be able to walk around it, to walk underneath it, to kind of be immersed in this experience. And it has a lot of magical qualities to it, I think, that speak to kind of going beyond the body into a state that is more sort of elevated and sort of joyful. And if I had to talk about the student work in general, I would say that one of our strengths, I think, as a school, our students tend to work from a very personal place. And our job is to help them understand how to take personal experience and translate it into a work that an audience can relate to, have a deeper experience through viewing it. That's one aspect of what we see in the show, is the personal experiences of our students and what they're interested in, whether that is some aspect of dealing with, understanding their own sense of identity. And that identity can be filtered through lots of different concerns, whether it's in the piece, next to Morgan McCullen's is Evi Hinojosa. And this is a painting that's based on sort of coming to terms with one's own femininity and also how society influences women and women's sexuality, how that's all filtered through social expectations, right? So she asks questions about those things as she makes paintings based on her own body image. So, for example, if we look at Morgan McCullen's painting here, Morgan is really interested in how our sense of who we are is filtered through social media, right? So when we look at this painting, it's actually portraits of a young woman that she is related to, I believe, and you'll see that it's fragmented. There's a certain kind of like zooming in on certain features, so the fragmentation and the distortion relates back to how social media creates either a fragmented or a specifically highlighted sense of our own identity, right? And I think if I would say anything about the show in general, too, as you look around, that sense of an interest in making a well-crafted thing is evident in both spaces, whether that's photography or furniture design. So we have one of the things I appreciate about Chris's jury selection this year is that he included a lot of furniture design as well. So we have work by architecture and interior design students, too. It's really exciting and interesting to see this kind of diversity happening in our students. I think over here in the corner, there is a piece by another graduate student, Pankita Patel. She's an MFA candidate in graphic design, and this is a piece that's entitled Language Barrier. And it's really, again, like coming from her own personal experience, as a student who experiences challenges, here studying in Louisiana because of a language barrier, right? And so she's doing this wonderful sort of interactive project where she has other students who come from, Pakistan, India, other countries who face a similar challenge. So asking questions about, how do they deal with the fact that they only have a partial understanding of the English language, and asking them to write short statements about that. So one of the things that I like about Chris's selection, again, is that it allows students who aren't necessarily studio majors to make work or submit work that is their own personal work. We have work in the show that is what we would say foundation level, all the way through senior BFA students, all the way through MFA students. And that's really the only direction that we give our jurors at all. This show is a chance for, not only for our students to have their work seen by the public, but it's also where we go when at the end of the year we assign student awards. So at every level, foundation level, junior, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, grad student, we have awards at all those levels. And we have awards in painting and drawing and all those categories too. So, for example, this printmaking project here by Cecile Foster, this is a collage that was made as a class project. And not all of the work that we see in the show is a class project. But this is originally started out as a carving, a lino cut, that was then printed in our printmaking studio, that was then cut and collaged and recombined into a new composition. This is a really great project because it allows the students to experience other parts of campus. They go to special collections and actually do some drawing research there from images and books, work a lot in their sketchbooks until they arrive at some symbols or imagery that they really like, and then the work kind of unfolds from there. So again, you'll see like it's multi-layered. The class itself is just a basic design class about composition and about just the very fundamental aspects of design. But the project is multi-layered. So I really love that about it too. So this is Tom Faulkner. This is his first year as a grad student. It's a piece that is multidisciplinary, right? So he's combining an interest in sculpture and in printmaking together in the work. And I think that, again, this is like evidence of how our students don't necessarily come and study only one thing. We really work hard to give them a sense of an opportunity to work across multiple disciplines, right? There's a sense of humor in this work that I think is really great too. Katelyn Malloy is a graduate student who came originally from a biology background, actually, through Louisiana Tech University. And so now she's back, and you can see in this work, the very cellular forms. It's a beautiful digital print. She's interested in that intersection between science and art, too. It's great because she works closely with Nick Bustamante, who is, of course, the director of the VISTA program. And so that interconnection across disciplines that's evident in the show is pretty wonderful too, I think, to the show. So Yuan Shu, she is an architecture student. This is a beautiful all-colored pencil drawing that she's made. And I just think like the craft, the technique in it, again, this is something that relates to questions that have to do with identity, personal identity. It's small moments like curling one's hair. How do we know who we are from a back view like this? It's beautifully crafted, and I love that she's had the opportunity to show that work here too. And so when I look about this room, both of these rooms actually, I'm proud of them. I'm proud to see the level of craft. It's almost like with any artist, the ultimate experience of seeing your work is seeing it up in an installation like that. out of the studio in the space that's meant for the public to view. And somehow there's a sense of finish about that. And when I look at the show, I see something a little bit more better than a typical student show, you know? And so to me, that indicates that we're doing something right. And I think that that also indicates that they're stepping up to the plate. And I would say that's pretty descriptive of our students in general.